First segment for today, we are going to talk about Pharaoh King Tutankhamun, as two chambers were discovered recently in his tomb in the Valley of Kings in the city of Luxor. We'll try to know more about these two chambers and the nature of the organic materials that were found inside them. And to shed more light on this discovery, we are joined here in the studio with Mr. Bassem Shamma. He is author in Egyptology. Good morning, Mr. Bassem.
Good morning to you, my dear.
Good morning, Mr. Shamma. And as Shireen have just said, we've heard this week about two new chambers that were discovered in the tomb of Tutankhamun. Are you expecting more surprises?
Well, Tutankhamun never ceased to amaze us. He's always coming up with great news. He's always coming up with exciting discoveries. And we all remember what happened on the 4th of November, 1922, when the world heard about finding steps leading to 16 steps descending corridor leading to 4 chambers, which is today called Tomb 62 of King Tutankhamun. And that is how we pronounce his name in a correct hieroglyphic manner. Amun is an addition made later on, and we are all following Amun even in our universities and schools. And the first message today to our Minister of Education, please go back to the hieroglyphic namings, because we are in need to pronounce the names of our ancestors in a correct manner. So Tutankhamun and not Amun. Number 2, the greatest surprise in 1922 was that it was nearly an intact tomb. Lots and lots of words about it is the only nearly intact tomb in the Valley of the Kings, which is, I'm here today to tell you, wrong. So we are correcting some of the mistakes which has been written, and the people are repeating it here and there. No, Tutankhamun's tomb is not the only tomb in the Valley of the Kings which was nearly intact when it was found and excavated. There is another tomb called the tomb of Yuya and Tuya. See how the names are interesting? Yuya and Tuya. Who are those guys? Well, this is the father and mother-in-law of King Amenhotep III, and the father and the mother of Queen Tai, or Queen T, the most famous queen in ancient Egyptian history. Now, what's the relation between Queen T and Amenhotep III and our business today of Tutankhamun? You will see that Queen T was the mother of Akhenaten. And by this, she is the grandmother of Tutankhamun. So that's number 1. Number 2, everybody's talking about Howard Carter, still to be the man who excavated the tomb. Now, today, I'm here for the second correction to say, I don't think Howard Carter by his own hands found the steps leading to the tomb. He was the supervisor, of course, of the excavation party.
He was the supervisor of a team working with him, but it was his mind working on this.
Exactly, him and other people, of course, with brilliant names before him and after him. But if you look right here, you will notice that I brought you this picture.
We have it on the screen here.
Excellent.
Right.
If you look at the screen, you will notice funerary debris collapsed boxes with numerous fragments of gold leaves. You will find that excavations happen in calcite. And also, if you look, you will find a flower circle at the top. Right under it, 3 kind of cloth. When natron salt was found inside, natron salt means mummification.
Yes.
In this case.
Yes.
So it seems with that also calcite jar that was excavated before 1922. So here is the third correction, or the third surprise today.
Yes.
Tutankhamun's tomb was found 1922, yes, but before 1922, some stuff which is related to Tutankhamun was found in the Valley of the Kings years before Howard Carter announced the excavation. Now, we can compare this to what happened 2 days ago in the conference when the Minister of Antiquity came up and said 90% There is a possibility 90% two chambers attached right behind the walls of the tomb of Tutankhamun, the known tomb of Tutankhamun today. Now here we must intervene. Number one, define the word chamber.
It's a tomb?
It should have been defined in the conference. It was not. Why? Because a chamber to me in archaeology is either a square or a rectangular chamber, just like that chamber, or a corridor chamber, for example, which is related to a tomb or an excavation of a tomb. When they said more than 90% possibility, this could be any shape. We didn't see shapes. Now what did they do?
He said
They used
more
radar.
revealed end of March.
He said that the radar business, which
Yes.
took place 2.5 months ago almost, was sent to Japan, and Japan returned with with some information. Now, I was expecting that the Japanese Watanabe, that's the name of the expert, his name is Watanabe would have produced to the world the shape of the openings or the chambers attached to the tomb of Tutankhamun. If the chambers are square or rectangular, then we are in business.
Right.
But if it is just a cave-like excavation, so that's another story. Reeves, the historian and the Egyptologist who produced that idea at the beginning, and our minister seemed to be very, he mentioned something about that this room will contain 2,000 pieces at least, and the mummy of Nefertiti, and 80% of the tomb of Tutankhamun is Nefertiti's.
But they said that there were organic materials in these two rooms, which...
he said that the walls, those walls, the radar showed, as he explained in the conference 2 days ago, that the walls are, a part of it is made out of the organic stuff, and I didn't quite get well what he meant by an organic wall. I didn't quite catch it. What is the meaning of an organic wall? Or he said there is a percentage of it made out of organic stuff, and the others are made out of metal stuff.
Yes.
Now, we don't, in ancient Egypt, we don't have metal walls.
Yes.
So I didn't quite get what he meant by those two things.
So we need more clarification.
Exactly.
And this will show up in the coming days.
He said that there will be another radar at the end of this month, and the 1st of April, one day after it, he will announce more information about it. So if we are going to find two chambers, as I explained, and 2,000 pieces as Reeves expected, and a mummy of Nefertiti, then we are rewriting the history of Egypt. I doubt all of this, personally. But I am used to, in Egyptology, to be surprised all the time. So I doubt this business. Here,
we also have another photo here,
When I sent this photo, because in 1909, again, some years before Tutankhamun's excavation, names of Tutankhamun started to appear. Sometimes on a kind of cloth with the name of the king on it. So a piece of cloth made out of linen, and this piece of linen has got the name of the king on it before the excavation of Tutankhamun, which means that we found, before the tomb, we found monuments for the king. And that's a surprise, because many people thought that Tutankhamun's tomb was only inside Tutankhamun's tomb. There is nothing for Tutankhamun's outside his tomb. And that is now incorrect, because I'm showing you now pieces of linen, and we found also
outside the tomb.
Exactly, outside the tomb. Well said. Now the interesting thing, if you look very carefully, you will notice that there is a figure right here on the left-hand side of the viewer.
Right.
You will find 6 stripes, like 6 ones, 3 at the top and 3 under it. What are those 6 stripes like that? 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom. These are the numbers in hieroglyphs.
Yes.
And these are the numbers of the years. So now I'm introducing to the world that this linen cloth is in the year 6 of the rule of the king. Now, this is how ancient Egyptian kings and queens and ancient Egyptian people would use their historical dating. For example, I met both of you in the year so-and-so of the rule of King so-and-so. That's how you would put your date. If that was the year 20 of the rule of Ramesses II, so in the month of the summer, in the second day of the third month, in the year 20 of the rule of Ramesses II. That was the dating. Now, this piece of cloth, once again, is dated back, as the hieroglyphic words is writing right here, is back to the 6th year. Now, we know that Tutankhamun ruled for about 9 to 10 years. So this is a good 3 or 4 years before he died that surprising death, because he died about 18 or 19 years of age. And many people thought that maybe he fell off his chariot wheel. Others said he was beaten on the back of his head. Others believe that he was assassinated. I believe he was assassinated.
But I think that King Tut is so important in Egypt's history. There is always a spotlight on his life. Why?
Well, first of all, because of the huge media that accompanied 1922. You are talking about thousands of pieces inside all of the smallest. Yes, I mean, Tutankhamun is not a big tomb.
Yes.
Tutankhamun artistically is not an excellent tomb. Artistically, the art that you see and the only painted chamber in the tomb is not the most wow of the Valley of the Kings. Oh no. It would, amazingly enough, it would come really in the last 3 or 4 of the whole list.
I have a question. Why was the curse of the pharaohs associated with Tutankhamun?
Right, well said. Well, remember that only few months after the opening of the tomb, the man who sponsored Howard Carter, the very rich British Lord Carnarvon, Earl Carnarvon V, he died a surprising death. He was in ill health and everything. But when he died, many happenings took place at that time. People said that he was cut shaven when he was I don't know what. Others said that he was beaten by a mosquito, so this mosquito came out from the coffin, and all of and 3,000 years mosquito. All those stories, those are fancy stories, of course. But the cutting, yes, the cutting happened. And if you go to Highclere Castle, the castle of the Carnarvon family, today, you will see a museum made by the Carnarvon family, and exhibited in this museum the blade that he cut himself while he was shaving. That is now, people pay money to go and see that kind of razor blade that he used in shaving his beard. Now, this is how tourism is made. That's another story. But yes, that happened, and it happened, and there were talks about when he died, electricity went off, Cairo, Susie was his dog, 3-legged dog, barked and then died at the same time he died. and he died.
I didn't know that was a pharaonic name.
That was the dog of Lord Carnarvon, and it died in Britain at the same time that he died. So all those stories, true or false, accompanied in this big media palaver of the whole thing. And it started that business of the mummy curse. Of course, many people are talking about how Lord Carnarvon died a few months after the excavation, but very little people talked about that the people who participated in the excavation themselves died 80-something years of age and 70-something years of age, and they didn't die young, and they didn't die of, I don't know, happenings, or they didn't went crazy, or they went insane, and they didn't laugh highly in the middle of the Valley of the Kings.
Right. So, to what extent these discoveries renewed public interest in ancient Egypt?
Oh yes, of course. I mean, in ancient Egypt and in modern Egypt, it would raise huge public thing, and you should use things like that in tourism. But I have here to warn the Minister of Antiquities a very, very important warning.
Yes.
People around the world don't like huge titles on nothing.
Yes.
That we are talking here how you are going to be believed in or not next time. So you have to be very careful in what you say. When you say this is the greatest, if there were 2 rooms excavated, that's what he said, it's going to be probably perhaps the greatest excavation of the 21st century. This is a very heavy title. This is a very strong sentence to use. And we have to be very careful on what we tell the world because the world was sitting in this conference. The huge names of the press of the world was waiting for you to say one word. So every letter you say is counted on you.
So we have also another picture here that we would like to comment.
Now, gold leaves were found also before with the name of Tutankhamun on it, and it was found also outside the tomb. Some historians are saying, funnily enough, that some of this stuff was used in the mummification of Tutankhamun. And when they were through with the operation, they left those vases and those things in a pit, as if the workers are through, so they throw the stuff and put some sand on it, only for you to come after thousands of years and excavate it to find that his name is around. A sentence that we can end by, terribly important. Howard Carter wrote this amazing sentence. Quote Howard Carter in his diaries. And I was greeted by the announcement. Please be very careful, viewers, with those two words. Greeted and announcement. Who's talking? Carter.
Yes.
And I was greeted by the announcement that a step cut in the bedrock had been discovered underneath the very first hut to be attacked. This is a total change in the history of Howard Carter and Tutankhamun. This particular phrase. Why? Because now Carter is saying and confirming, as a matter of fact, he's confessing that he was not there when the tomb was first found with the first step, right or wrong?
Yes.
Because if he was there with the step which led to the 16 steps leading to the 4 chambers of Tutankhamun, he would have said what? I was there and I excavated the step.
Yes.
But now he's saying I was greeted by the announcement.
Yes,
Somebody
was announced.
met him and told him, we found the step leading to the 16 steps descending corridor leading to the tomb. Which means that Howard Carter was not there when the excavation took place. And that's a change in the history. Of course, that's a change in the history, because everyone is referring to Howard Carter as the excavator of Tutankhamun. Well, now he's confessing in this sentence. This sentence should be taught in the universities now. Should be now added to the book that they teach to the archaeological students in our universities, so that when they come out and the lecture and the guides.
So who discovered the tomb, if not Howard Carter?
The party, of course,
yes.
The party was working. Of course, he was the supervisor, as we mentioned before. Yeah, that's fine. But the interesting thing is that he was not there when that step was found.
Okay.
Rather, there is a story which is not, to me, is not 100% confirmed. But that story is mentioned, that the water boy from Luxor was the true excavator. With every party of excavation, there is the water boy, Al-Saqqa, who is going to get you water when you are in the middle of the desert. So, for him to put his pot, he's got to clean, and he's got to find a smooth area near the place of the excavation to put his pot and the stand of the pot. That is the job of that young Luxorian who's taking care of the water to the excavation party. When he was doing that, that smart Luxorian child found a step.
Yes.
When he was cleaning the sand to put his stand for the jar. And the story is telling us that that was the step which led to the excavation of the 16 steps descending to open into the tomb of. And if that story is confirmed, and we need to confirm it, that means that the true excavator of Tutankhamun was not Howard Carter, he was the water boy, and we need to know his history, we need to know his name, we need to put his name also in Luxor in front of the tomb, because he's the true excavator of the whole thing. But media at that time didn't give that child any of his rights.
Do we expect to see any more hidden secrets in the Valley of the Kings and the Queens, where we have numbers and numbers of tombs?
Oh, all the time, my dear, all the time. I mean, you never see, those guys never cease to amaze us. There's always surprises next day. And that's why I say, if Reeves was saying that Nefertiti is inside one of those 2 chambers in a coffin, right? And you are going to tell me how Nefertiti would be buried in how a queen would be buried in the Valley of the Kings. The Queen Kings. Well, don't despair, because the Valley of the Kings was not only for the kings. Oh, there were princes. in the Valley of the Kings, KV5.
Yes.
Tomb number 5 in the Valley of the Kings, who were they? They were the sons of Ramesses II. They were the prince. So plural, princes. So those princes were buried in the Valley of the Kings. So it's not the Valley of the Kings only.
Yes.
Valley of the Kings and the princes and the mother-in-law and the father-in-law.
Queens, the whole family.
So you can have females in the Valley of the Kings, yes. Only problem with that is why Nefertiti would be brought after her death from Tel El Amarna in Minya all the way to the Valley of the Kings. How come? 1. 2. Remember, Akhenaten and Nefertiti, his beloved wife, were enemies to Thebes. They were considered enemies to Luxor. So how am I bringing the enemies to be buried inside the place which hates them?
There are reports that Tutankhamun's sister married Atur and his mother Kia, or his grandmother Tia, but might be buried in these two chambers. What do you think?
Yes, I mean that's another thing. Yes, you are right. Kia was, Akhenaten was married to Nefertiti.
Yes.
Nefertiti brought him 6 daughters. 6 daughters. So he married Kia. Kia brought him Tutankhamun.
Yes.
So the mother of Tutankhamun is not Nefertiti. She's Kia. Now, if Kia was buried in one of those 2 chambers, how come Kia and Nefertiti would be buried in the same place?
Yes.
Of course, that is a little bit, yes. Members of the family, I'm with you.
Yes.
And that should show in that business of radar at the end of this month. So if there were coffins, if there were mummies, then we're in business, we start. Personally, I don't have the feeling that we are going to find any bodies in those rooms. That's number 1 of my feeling. Number 2 of my expectations, these are not 2 chambers. They are kind of vacancies, but they are not rectangular or square-shaped chambers.
They should be rectangular or square to be a tomb?
To be a chamber, yeah. I mean, why are you burying yourself? Of course, you can have a cave-like tomb, but that's not for a queen or a king.
Yes.
Queen or a king, you should have the room excavated right. It should have the measurements right. You should at least have some of the drawings. Of course, Tutankhamun don't have any depictions, but in one room, which is the room of the burial, fine. So I can be okay with a room without drawings. That I would accept as well. I have no problems with that as well. But I personally doubt that there will be any mummies. I doubt there will be 2,000 pieces in one room, 2,000 antiquities in one room, as Reeves was saying. And I very much doubt that there will be any drawings on the walls.
What other new steps could be taken to reveal more secrets about the tomb?
Okay, number 1, if you are going to open into those 2 chambers, whatever you would like to call them, I advise them not to open from inside the tomb. Because if you do that, you are going to play with the very stability of the walls of the tomb itself. Now, you don't want to excavate something and destroy something else, or at least weaken something else. Don't weaken the walls. We are talking here thousands and thousands of years. So we're talking about a tomb which was not built. The tomb of Tutankhamun was not built. It was carved. There is a huge difference between carving and building. So what I'm trying to advise them is, if you are going to open, and if indeed you prove that they were 2 correct, proper chambers, then do it from outside, from the desert side, so that you don't play with the stability and the very foundation of the tomb. That's number 1. Number 2, the mummy of Tutankhamun, please put it back inside the coffin, because now it's in some glass case. Well, this is dangerous and not respectable from my point of view. The man wanted to be buried inside his coffin. Let him be inside the coffin.
Right.
Don't put him in a glass case. He didn't want that. Tutankhamun did not want his body to be shown in a glass case. All right? So, do we have any more surprises? I will give you very quickly 3 surprises I'm awaiting for the coming years, inshallah, God willing. 1.
Okay, we'll wait. We'll go for a break, and then you will tell us about the surprises after going for a short break. Please. So stay tuned.
وصائح
وانت ماشي في مصر شايف ألف ضحكة بتناديك وانت ماشي في مصر عارف إنها فرحانة بيك قولي فين الغربة وانت وسط أهلك مش بعيد ده الفرح لو زار ديارك يلقى جوه ديارنا عيد يلقى سعد الشدائي
سلمى يا سلام نومنا بالسلام سلمى يا سلام نومنا بالسلام نهار وليل مصر صحية تبارك فيها النوم تقابل ناس بالمحبة تزيد الشوق يدوم في مصر تكون نتصافح الكل عليك حبيبي يا غالي لسان الناس بالكلام الحلو ينقط سكر حالي كل شي فيها طيب فيها حاضر فيها طيب فيها يتلاقوا الأحبة وبين قلوب الناس تطيب نهار وليل مصري صحية تبارك فيها النوم
وانت ماشي في مصر شايف ألف ضحكة بتناديك وانت ماشي في مصر عارف إنها فرحانة بيك
سلمى يا سلام رحنا وبينا بالسلام سلمى يا سلام رحنا وبينا بالسلام
بلاد الخير شيلة ضيوفها فوق الراس يا مرحب بك تنكر وجدع ناس تعال اقعد نور هات واحد شاي ولازم تشرب كلمة نكتة احنا بينا عشرة خلاص
أبدأ منين العشق مين عن هواها يستغنى وفي الجميل توصف كرامها كأنها الجنة جمع الحبايب والجيران ما فيهاش غريب عني اسهر يا ليل غني يا عين قسم وسلطني
مصر قريبة وهواك جواها الغريب ما بالك وانت القريب اخويا وصاحبي
أمان وسلام ما نعرف خصام طريق المحبة دليل في مصر تشوف تاريخ حكاية والزمان وقاعدة في قرب النيل تنسيك هموم الدنيا تصف القلوب وتروح صديقة وحبيبة وصدقة وأجمل كيان وروح شوف نفس الملامح والوجود العزم يحتار ويتوب والعين ما تقدر تفرق أبدا ما بين عربي وأخوه أمان وسلام ما نعرف خصام طريق المحبة دليل
بمصر الحضن اللي عاش يكسر بينا الحدود مسير الغايب يعود وتلمس ايده
وانت ماشي في مصر شايف ألف ضحكة بتناديك وانت ماشي في مصر عارف إنها فرحانة بيك ألف ضحكة بتناديك قريبة وفرحانة بيك
في مصر كل الوشوش تعرفها مصر قريبة.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're still watching Breakfast Show live on Nile TV International and still with our prominent historian, Mr. Bassam Al-Shamea. And sir, as you were talking before this break, you were telling us about 3 main surprises related to excavation. Would you please elaborate?
Right. For every historian, there are dreams, there are hopes, there are wishes, and my greatest wish is summarized in those 3 excavations that I'm going to tell you about. Perhaps in the future, in the very near future, not in the very distant future, perhaps that will happen one day, and by this we can, 1, rewrite the Egyptian history, 2, there are gaps in every history. There are gaps. In our history, there are gaps. For example, Alexander the Great, the Alexander the Third, the Macedonian, all these titles, right? Now, whatever happened to him, he died 32, about to be 33 years of age. So his tomb was never excavated till today. Many attempts, oh yes, many attempts were recorded on finding his tomb. Some people said in Siwa oasis. Can you imagine finding the tomb of Alexander the Great, the cosmopolitan character? We're not talking here only Egyptian history now. We're talking the history of the world. Because remember, the empire of Alexander was from Portugal all the way until India. Can you imagine the world, the known world at that time was under the power of one person who was 30, when he died he was 32 years of age. It's pretty amazing. So then that excavation can fill in a huge gap in our history. That's number one. Number two, then you can make Siwa one of the greatest tourist attractions in the world.
Yes.
In the world, because people will be coming by droves to see the tomb of, that was, if it happened that it was in Siwa, it could be in Alexandria. Some other people saying in Babylonia, by the way. Others saying Macedonia. No matter where, but that will be related. Discussions will take place. People will be talking about it. And I like your idea when you said, let's talk more about Egyptology. Let's talk more about excavations. Let's talk more about theories, like what we do now.
Yes.
Yeah,
My theory against history.
that we keep talking about our discoveries, our mysteries, and using this as a sort of publicity worldwide. People should know what's going on related to the pharaohs and the ancient Egyptians.
I'm with you 150% on that. Bearing in mind that when we are discussing and debating, healthy debates, right, we are not to fall into the pit of the decision.
Yes.
The decision, very important, because you don't decide unless materialistic proofs in our hands, then we can talk to the world, so that the world can believe us. Right. Now, that's excavation number one that I hope one day will take place, because until now we don't even know how he died. And I know there are theories about him being poisoned, for example. Is that important, you ask? It's crucial. Not important, it's crucial. Yes. Because these are huge gaps in the history. Cleopatra the Seventh, again, a very mysterious lady, yet very well known. Cleopatra the Seventh is, when we were talking about women in ancient history, and when we were talking about mothers in ancient Egypt and in ancient world, everybody talks about Cleopatra the Seventh being the beauty that was Elizabeth Taylor in the movie, right? But have you ever thought of Cleopatra the Seventh as a mother? You never.
Yes.
And that's what I'm trying now to focus on. I'm focusing today on, this was one day a mother. She was a mother by Caesarion.
Yes.
That's the son from Julius Caesar. And three sons and daughters from Marcus Antonius.
So they did have Caesarion at that time?
Well, his name was Caesaron. The name of the child was Caesarion. Yes. Was that because he was, no, because his father was titled Julius Caesar.
Yes.
So the smalling of Caesar, when you make Caesar a small guy, you call him Caesarion.
So, Mr. Bassam, as you start talking about mothers, and we are celebrating Mother's Day these days, tell us about the most famous mothers in ancient Egypt.
Two types of mothers were mentioned in ancient Egypt. The mythological mothers, like Isis, for example, and the real, down-to-earth lady who led as a queen, or as a doctor, or as a physician, or as a high priestess in the temples, or the working lady, or the businesswoman. We had businesswomen in ancient Egypt. And so that will give you the idea of a mother being a queen, a mother being a businesswoman, a mother being a doctor, and so on and so forth. If we take the mythological character, I'll take one example of mothers, which is Iset. Iset is the hieroglyphic word for Isis. Isis is Greek. Isis is the Greek naming of the hieroglyphic name Iset.
Yes.
And Iset was the model, if you like, of wives and mothers. Because in the mythology, she lost her husband. Her husband, Wasir, was Osiris, was killed, was assassinated. So she had only one son, who is Horus, the falcon. So this is a good example of the Egyptian lady who actually lost her husband, and she never got married afterwards. very Egyptian style mother who will be dedicated to the child after she had lost her husband. That's Iset or Isis. Also, she was the loyal lady. She was the model of and a good example of the loyal lady to her deceased husband. You know this business of Egyptian women would wear black for the rest of their lives if she lost her husband. She's not going to wear colors. That is a kind of a tradition that is in our society today and still living. Also, from the other side, the true women, the women who actually lived. And I will choose for you a character with the name of Hatib. This lady is an amazing mother. Hatib was a queen.
Yes.
And her son is the most famous Ahmos, the leader,
yes,
the military leader against
so
the
she
Hyksos.
is the mother of Ahmos.
She's the mother of Ahmos.
Yes.
Ahmos is Mes, the son of the moon.
Yes.
That's the meaning. Her name, Hatib, means the satisfaction of the moon, the contentness of the moon. Hatib is a hieroglyphic word for content, satisfied, happy, peace, if you like, and is the moon. So, her name means the moon is in peace.
Yes.
The peaceful moon. I like that name. It's beautiful. And she was a leader. She was an amazing lady, very strong queen, and we knew that because she lost her husband in the war against the Hyksos. Mm-hmm. And he was killed. He was beaten. He was struck on his head in various parts by a club, by some sort of a military weapon. So we know that he lost his life during that battle. So she led the country, because remember, Kamuz died some years, and Ahmuz, or Mes, was only 10 years of age when he took the throne of Egypt. Can you believe that? The man who destroyed the Hyksos, the man who led the Egyptian army against the Hyksos, took the power of the throne of Egypt when he was only 9 or 10. He died 35. Ahmuz died 35.
Yes.
See how the youth in ancient Egypt was very working since early time. So his mother prepared him. That's what I'm trying to say. His mother was the true ruler of the country, because 10 years of age. How are you going to rule when you are only 10? So obviously his mother. When she died, when Hatib died in her 80s, some people say 83 or 84 years of age, and that's long. Because you are talking about an average age in ancient Egypt of 45 years of age. So from 40 to 45 years of age, that's your average age in ancient Egypt.
Why?
So people were dying due to
was
diet.
not advanced.
Yeah, due to diet. Medicine was, of course, for the kings and the high caliber of the society. But going back, when you die 84 years of age, that's something that will attract your attention.
Is it true that Tutankhamun, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly,
yes,
died at the age of 18?
18 or 19, you are correct. And by this, he would have ruled about 10 years only.
Right.
Right? Finally, about Hatib, I will close with this. Hatib, when she died, her son wrote a text about her, describing her as she who gathered all who opposes the system, meaning that she was a diplomat as well, to gather everybody, to those who like the regime and to those who don't like the regime.
Yes.
And she put them all under one flag, that is the Egyptian flag.
Okay, Mr. Bassam Shamma, author Egyptology, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, my dear.
Right, Mr. Shamma, thank you for being with us. Thank you, Shireen. Dear viewers, you were in the company of Naveen Ramzi and Shireen Adel. Many thanks for watching, and tomorrow a new edition and a new crew.